So, both Legend of the Five Rings and Weapons of the Gods are a martial arts culture, one pseudo-Japanese and the other pseudo-Chinese. Because they're about foreign cultures, they have broad settings. This involves multiple religions, social strata, clans, and other organizations. They take very different approaches to presenting this, by concept or through legends. And I'd like to explore that by comparing how they handle women. Despite having complex issues ranging from honor or religion, L5R, or Legend of the Five Rings, only devotes a single page to women. And even that is an option for players who want to more accurately simulate history. So, now, women are mentioned in other sections, such as geisha, but geisha are described more vaguely than even in Samurai Ko that normally women are. And there are male equivalents of geisha, but the game doesn't explore those. It just mentions that yes, you can have male geisha. Traditionally, they're known as tea house boys. But considering class is very important to the society, I would expect at least one example for each strata rather than just the Samurai Ko. But there's a problem with that. It doesn't explore this cultural significance of portraying women, only women of the samurai class. While it's impossible to explore every woman played, just focusing on just one isn't anywhere near good enough. Weapons of the Gods handles that a little bit better, telling the story of the three of the Emperor's concubines, each of whom took a different approach to aging. One remained beautiful, another became a martial artist, and the third raised a son to be an advisor. Two of these approaches focus on Western traditional ideas of womanhood, while the third being the Western cultural exception. Unlike L5R, Weapons of the Gods, or WotG, doesn't present problems with playing female characters as optional. It takes a different tact. Women's lesser status is recognized with an exception of women who become martial artists. Players can signal that they want to explore this social dynamic by adding various background details to their character sheet. Players who don't want to explore those issues simply don't add those details. This accomplishes the same thing as L5R's cultural options, but without equalizing gender roles across every social class. Furthermore, WotG addresses issues of romance, Taoist sex, marriage, and hetero and homosexuality, and a lot more issues. And to give you an example, there is the legend, and then there are the rules, okay? And it's got different sections based on things, but then it gets into things of marriage and courtship and Taoist sexual basics and other things. Needless to say, this section is 33 pages long, and I don't plan on showing you each and every page, not counting additional material elsewhere in the book. However, the placement around the middle of the book indicates that something about it's important to this game, in that it's not as important as things that are close to the front of the book. To its credit, L5R places its section in its second chapter called the Book of Air, which is the setting chapter, and it begins with a story about the beginning of the universe. That is the only story contained within that chapter. Every chapter begins with a story, but there are no stories about every topic within the chapters, the basic thing that I want to get across. Overall, I think Weapons of the Gods approach is much better than L5R's, but that's using more recent lens to examine historical role-playing games. This one was made in 2005, this one in 2010. Weapons of the Gods approach also requires a lot more space, which isn't always available. But not every game needs to address this issue. In fact, it could be argued that Legend of the Five Rings approach actually hurts more than it helps in terms of how it represents women. That said, I'm hesitant to recommend it for more recent games. So this approach is much more appropriate for science fiction games and more commonly found in games. Weapons of the Gods takes a very Chinese approach to history and understanding its history as a series of stories which overrule reality. In fact, I think this is a great approach to designing fantasy, medieval, or post-apocalyptic game or martial arts games. After all, RPGs are about stories. Science fiction games, more the L5R approach, emphasizing facts over stories that reflect different ways of thinking about the universe. That said, there are going to be exceptions, such as the World Warhammer 40k, which mixes the medieval with science fiction. So, anyways, that's just what I've been thinking about. Have yourself a great day, and do it.